Hi, I'm Aisha Pandor, and I'm an under 40 CEO.
The African Renaissance. The concept that the African people and nation shall overcome the current challenges confronting the continent and achieve cultural, scientific, and economic renewal is here, with young men and women taking the lead. Some call them the new school heroes. We call them under 40 CEOs.
Aisha Pandor has a doctorate degree in human genetics from the University of Cape Town and an associate in management from the UCT Graduate School of Business. Aisha previously worked as a management consultant, gaining experience in the telecommunications and mining sectors before venturing into her own business. Aisha Pandor is co-founder of SweepSouth, an online platform for booking, paying for, and managing home cleaning services from your laptop, phone, or tablet.
All right, welcome to Under 40 CEOs, Aisha.
Thank you for having me, Fab.
All right, Aisha, you trained as a scientist. You've got a PhD in human genetics.
Yep.
That's from the University of Cape Town. Tell me about growing up and this passion and love that you had for science as a child.
So I was one of those very annoying kids who always asked why. And when I would get an answer from an adult, the question would be why again. So I was very, very curious growing up as a child. I didn't just want to know why things work the way that they work, but I wanted to find out how to fix things afterwards. So I'd always want to use that knowledge to do something. And I think that's probably why I became a scientist. I wanted to find out about the world and about humans in particular and how we work and what makes us the way that we are. And I ended up studying genetic diseases.
Oh.
And again, wanted to understand why, as human beings, we get genetic diseases, but then how do we also start to look at ways to fix those diseases? And so my thesis was actually on gene therapy.
Amazing. And then you were done with your PhD and went to work as a business analyst for Accenture.
That's right. Yeah.
Who makes the switch from science to business consulting? Yeah. Why?
When I think about the way that I think and what I'm like as a person, it goes back to wanting to understand things and then wanting to use that knowledge to change things. And so as a business analyst and as a management consultant, that's exactly what I ended up doing. When I finished my PhD, I felt a little bit frustrated with gene therapy and the pace at which I would be able to try and apply that therapy to people and to helping them. And I thought, what is a field where things move more quickly? Business. Money makes the world go round. And when you're thinking business, you're able to get people and things to move pretty quickly when there's a business interest. And so I thought, let me go and immerse myself in the business world where I can, again, try and learn quickly about business, be in a business environment, and then try and affect change. And so working as a management consultant, I had that same sort of kind of gratification where I would go into an environment, find out quickly about a client and a client situation, find out what the problems were, and then try and fix those problems. And actually, the same sort of thinking has influenced me becoming an entrepreneur.
Amazing. So definitely you took your learnings from science and applied it to business.
Yeah.
Now, you've described your business as the first on the African continent. Yeah. And this publication also described your business as the Uber of cleaning.
Yeah.
That's amazing, right?
Yeah.
Now, what was SweepSouth set up to do?
So SweepSouth is a platform. It's a technological platform. And what it does is it connects domestic workers, who we term sweep stars, on our platform with homeowners who are looking for home cleaning services. And we're a marketplace, a two-sided marketplace. We're part of what's called the sharing economy. And what we're doing is facilitating a process between two sides of a marketplace and really trying to bring joy, efficiency, convenience to both sides. So for domestic workers, home cleaners, sweep stars, we're bringing work opportunities at decent paid, dignified work through the platform. And for homeowners, what we're providing is a very quick, easy, convenient way to use technology to get someone to come and clean your home.
That's just amazing.
Thanks.
Now, yours is a partnership, and not just a partnership, but a partnership between spouses.
Yeah.
Now, firstly, how do you even make your partnership work, and how would you advise a startup to partner and partner right?
Yeah. So I think, and this is key, I think, to what has made my partnership with my husband work. We went into it not thinking we're married, let's start a business together. We went into it thinking, you know what, we have come across this opportunity for a business. It's something that we think may work and may have really good impact. And we actually happen to have complementary skills to go into this partnership together, and complementary skills in terms of our skill sets, but also in terms of our personalities. So, you know, we're very different people. He's a developer. He's built our platform, you know, literally from scratch, has a lot of experience with building scalable systems. I'm a lot more on the kind of management side of things, and those skills match each other very well. But in terms of personality, we also, you know, I'm a lot more kind of the typical manager type personality. He's going to kill me for saying this, but he's a lot more of like the, you know, developer, and very much about getting things done and, you know, put your head down and logic and maths and science. And so we make a good match and complement each other very well. And I think that's really important when looking for a co-founder, that you're able to look at what does the business need, or what does this idea need, and then your co-founder needs to complement that. And then another key element, which has been super important for Alan and I, is that you have to really trust the person that you go into business with. You know, you've got to trust that person with your life. Your startup ultimately, you know, it will probably become your life if it goes well. And so you need to be able to trust someone, you know, and put your business and your baby into their hands.
Amazing. Now, on the 25th of January 2016, which happened to be my birthday.
Happy birthday for that day. I'm also a January.
Oh, amazing.
Baby, so
beautiful. When in January?
I'm on the 8th of January.
I'll just note that. So on this day, you secured funding. It was reported that you had secured about 10 million rand in funding for the business. Now, firstly, how do you go about securing that kind of funding? And how would you advise a startup to go about seeking funding for possibly an idea?
Yeah. So look, at that stage, the business had been running. It had been running for about a year and a half already. That was our second round of funding. We'd already secured a much smaller amount, but we'd already secured seed funding. And you know, at that point, it was very much about traction and about the growth that we've been able to show to that stage. And that meant that we could project very ambitious growth off of the back of our historical growth. It also meant that, you know, an investor coming in at that stage had seen that there was already an investor who'd invested in the business and had gotten good returns. But in terms of an idea, and at the idea stage or the seed stage, we actually went and pitched our business at a startup conference.
Oh, wow.
We were staying in Johannesburg, and we came to Cape Town and decided to pitch our business here with the aim of trying to get some new clients, actually some new customers in Cape Town. But one of the judges on that pitching panel happened to be an investor who we'd actually followed quite closely. He's a guy named Vinnie Lingham, very well-known South African tech entrepreneur and investor now, and he's now based in Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
That's right, yeah. And so Vinnie was on that panel, and you know, we really put a lot of work into the pitch in a short amount of time. And he came to us after the pitch and said, you know, guys, that was a really great pitch. I'd love to invest. What do you need? And so in terms of advice for other investors or other entrepreneurs, I would say, you know, firstly, have some traction. So we had, it was certainly very early stages, but we'd already had 6 months of traction at that stage. We had shown that we'd bootstrapped the business for a year before securing any funding. So we'd used our own savings, and we'd, you know, put our money where our mouth is, and kind of had some skin in the game, which is important for investors. And then we were able to demonstrate already at that stage that we were a good, solid team. You know, both myself and Alan individually had a good track record that we could show in terms of our previous employment. And it was very clear to see from our pitch that we were a team that had the skills matched to be able to grow this business from what it was into something much bigger. So I think, you know, that those things were key when investors made.
And being on ground now, I see how much the business has grown. Please do tell me, what is the current business structure for SweepSouth? So
we're currently a team of about over 20 people. It's difficult for me always to kind of place it because we're adding people to our employees on a monthly basis, but we're 20 plus people in our office. Our team is, we've got quite a big operations team, and those are the people who work really closely with our Sweep Stars. We've got a customer support team. We have a very small marketing team, and then we've got a dev team as well who've designed and built the platform. And then we've got our sweep stars, obviously, who aren't sitting in our office, but we certainly consider them kind of part of the greater family of SweepSouth. And we've got 2,500 of those registered on the platform.
Wow, that's huge.
It's a big number. It's a lot of people to manage, and it makes choosing the right people to be part of the platform extremely important.
Okay, so what are those key and critical lessons that you've learned about running a business to profitability and keeping it profitable?
Some of the key lessons have been, firstly, data is extremely important. We're a tech business at our heart, at the heart of what we do, and we certainly use a lot of tech to collect data and to analyze that data and to use it in our day-to-day business decisions. So, very early on, when we had a few users, in our first months, we would be analyzing how people were behaving on the site, literally hour to hour, and using that information to improve the site and the way that it worked. So if we saw that, there was a particular step that someone was struggling with, we would then real-time change that, contact the client and say, you know what, I noticed that you were struggling with that button. We've updated and made it a little bit easier. Why don't you try again? And so, we really listened to how people were using the site. And then another thing is, I think being very conscious of what it is that you're trying to achieve as a business. Okay. We're a tech startup, and we deal with domestic workers, and we are very resolute within the team that our mission is to build a really big organization that is going to make an impact when it comes to how people, particularly home services and home workers, are sourced and what their experience is like working in people's homes. And so it's not just about domestic workers. We're definitely going to expand into other types of home services, but the whole team is on board with what is our mission as a business. And then kind of tied to that is keeping track of your metrics. What metrics are you as a business monitoring day to day, week to week, month on month, and how relevant are those metrics to your actual business success? So, it's very important to keep an eye on, as your business, what's your North Star, and what is that North Star telling you about how your business is doing?
This is Under 40 CEOs.
Between 2011 and 2012, Aisha received a South African Women in Science Award for her research and was named as one of the Mail and Guardian newspapers' 200 Young South Africans. Aisha has acted as a tech startup pitching coach and mentor for Seed Stars Africa 2017 and was awarded the Price Check E-Commerce Female Entrepreneur of the Year Award and also Black Entrepreneur of the Year Award for 2016. Aisha was recognized by the World Economic Forum as one of the 2017's 6 African female breakthrough innovators for her work in creating work opportunities and improving access to technology via SweepSouth. Most recently, SweepSouth placed second in the F&B Business Innovation Awards held in partnership with Endeavour South Africa. Aisha was the only female founder selected as a finalist for the award, which recognizes and celebrates creativity, outstanding business innovation, and those that push beyond the limits to develop scalable businesses that can compete globally.
Now, you've garnered a lot of interest, not just in South Africa, but of course, even Silicon Valley and across the rest of the world. You've also received a number of nods, accolades, awards over time. What do these mean to you?
So it's great recognition, not just for myself and Alan, but also for our team. We have a fantastic team that we work with who are all, again, just so on board with what the mission is that this company is trying to achieve. And so it's great recognition for the work that we're trying to do. And it's just kind of a checkpoint to say, guys, we're doing okay. Let's keep on going. This just helps with building your brand and with brand credibility. We deal with customers, we deal with homeowners, and so to be able to say to them, you know what, you might be a little bit skeptical about what this business is, go and have a Google and see what we've achieved. So
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so what would you say makes the business landscape in South Africa unique?
I think we have this fantastic mix of kind of developed and developing economy, which is very interesting. So you have a lot of our economy that behaves like a developed economy, or like a first world or European and US or whatever you want to call it. Where you have this growing middle class who are very savvy in terms of tech. Our financial institutions are very advanced, and so how people use credit and cards and access apps, people's uptake of apps. Joburg is one of Uber's fastest growing markets. So you have this interesting mix of those sorts of people who are really abreast with cutting edge technology and cutting edge trends. And then there's the other side of the coin where you still do have people who are very underserved economically, and high rates of unemployment, issues with education. So it's this really interesting mix, and I think we're seeing entrepreneurs who are understanding this mix and understanding how we need to serve both sides of our economy to do well as businesses in South Africa. And I find that really exciting. And we've also got a government who's also increasingly realizing that in order to grow our economy, we need to pay a lot of attention to entrepreneurs, and to particularly small businesses that have the potential to grow into these big powerhouses that employ lots of people.
Okay, so while on this, what I call the CEO journey, what are those challenges that you've had to overcome to make the strides that you've made so far?
So, I mean, some of it has been just around basic finances. So, on starting our business, we bootstrapped the business, and we were both working corporate jobs, fairly well paid, and we made the decision to give up those jobs, cash in pensions, cash in all of our savings. We ended up selling our house and basically everything but one car, and to use that to fund the business. And it was a big sacrifice, especially considering the fact that that we're parents as well. And so it wasn't just ourselves that we had to think about. That was a kind of a big sacrifice, but conscious sacrifice that we had to make. We've always talked about having no plan B. So, going all in. If you're going to do this, do it without having a backup plan in place, and give it everything that you've got. Because we believe that, if you're going to ask employees to join your business, you've got to be able to also back it up by saying, I gave up a lot to do it as well. And then work-life balance has been one that's been particularly difficult for me, especially as a woman and as a mom. It's been very difficult for me to separate work and family, and I still haven't found that balance. I don't think I ever will, but that's been particularly tough. And there's still a lot of questions around the future of this ecosystem, and how is it going to grow? The supporting structures around tech startups. So when it comes to funding and funding at different stages, there's still a lot of questions about the maturity of those kind of supporting structures for tech entrepreneurs, and that's been tough. Not knowing kind of if those investors and other parts of those ecosystem, access to talent, for example, if those sorts of things are going to grow with you, because when you're growing fast, you've got to rely on those guys who are sometimes a little bit behind to catch up and be with you at the relevant stages.
Now, talking about these guys, human resources definitely a key element to consider when growing any enterprise. How do you typically hire?
And being quite selective when it comes to not just skills but also personality when you look at who joins the company. So, for example, if someone is excellent in terms of skill set and they have a wonderful CV, but they couldn't be bothered about the position of domestic workers and what it means to be a company that's trying to empower people, then they're not a good fit for the company. So culture plays a big part of it. We also use something called Strength Finder. So we use a strength-based assessment when we bring people into the company, and we look very closely at what are the skill sets or what are the strengths within the existing team, and how do the strengths of this incoming person match up. Okay. So that's quite important when looking at kind of the company dynamic, but also when looking at positioning someone who has particular strengths relative to what we expect from them in their role in the company. Okay. And then we also pay a lot of attention to demographics when we hire. And for me, it's important also that the people who we bring onto the company represent the demographics of our country.
Okay. So how would you describe your leadership style?
But quite easygoing. I think the size that the company is at internally, I think it's important that I know everyone in the company and that I'm approachable and people feel like they can come and speak to me. I've had to rely on obviously my team to be the people who report back on those sorts of things, and I want them to feel like they can approach me for absolutely anything when it comes to things that they've observed. We're probably easygoing because we have a couple running the company, and so I think there's a sense of family there as well. But that said, throughout my studies and career, I've always been someone who doesn't accept less than the best. And so, with that easygoingness, there's also an expectation from my team that they deliver, really top quality work. And I set that as an expectation from the get-go. So from someone's first interview with us, I make it very clear that, there's a reason why this company is doing well. There's a reason why SweepSouth is one of the fastest growing, most well-recognized tech companies in the country, if not on the continent. And, you've got to be part of that reason if you're going to come into the company.
What are your feelings as a leader?
My personal battle with work-life balance is something that can definitely it can give the wrong signal, I think, to the team. I recently had a baby who's 5 months old, and I was working both before and after she was born on the same day.
Wow.
And I think when I think back on it, I think that's a little bit crazy, and it's certainly not something that I would expect from my team. Absolutely not. But doing something and showing something by way of example, especially in terms of work-life balance, is something that I need to get better at.
Amazing. So tell me, what are those key skill sets that a CEO needs to acquire to manage his business successfully?
I think you've got to be able to multitask well. You've got to be able to have a lot of different business imperatives in mind, and be able to keep a good handle on how all of those are doing.
Okay.
I think you don't need to necessarily be approachable to be a good CEO, but your team need to feel comfortable being able to discuss business issues and things with you. I think if you're unapproachable, that can result in your team being hesitant to approach you and with issues when they come up. And then I think that you've got to be a good leader who shows by example, or who leads by example.
So what would you say is the biggest letdown that you've experienced in your career so far?
It's tough because I'm an optimist, so it's really difficult. But I think making hiring mistakes. But otherwise, it's been such a positive journey, and being an optimist, it's difficult for me to view things as failings or mistakes, because they ultimately always become part of your learning and part of your journey.
Okay.
And we've had such a positive journey as well that it's a question I always struggle to answer.
This is Under 40 CEOs.
A healthy dose of optimism is what really drives young business leaders to achieve the unimaginable, and Aisha is no different. For this hard worker, who was working on the day her last child was born and immediately goes back to work a few hours after the birth as well, I'm now wondering, what does Aisha do for fun? How does she relax? What are her favorite things in the world? I am about to find out.
All right, I have a few quick fire questions for
Sure.
you. What do you love to eat?
Vegetables. I'm vegetarian. Vegetables.
How would you describe your fashion style?
Laid back, classic, but on top of trends.
Okay, what brands do you love to wear?
I like high street, so Zara, H&M.
All right, your favorite car to drive?
My only car is my VW Polo, which my husband and I both drive. So it's not my favorite, but it's a trusty car, so that's it.
What's your favorite travel destination?
New York.
Okay, what other CEOs do you currently look up to?
Brian Chesky, I think he's a fantastic CEO. He's been great at creating a community and a vision. Locally, Kanye Dlomo is someone who's just, she's built up a fantastic empire.
Okay, your favorite book of all time?
The Alchemist.
Okay, what book are you reading right now?
So I've just gotten a book that is by Tim Ferriss, the same guy who wrote the 4-Hour Work Week.
Amazing. So lastly, I'd like to know, Aisha, what makes you happy?
Absolutely in love with my nuclear family, both my nuclear family. So, my husband and 2 kids, as well as my siblings. And I have such supportive parents. So family to me makes me happy, and they have been so supportive. And the harder I work, the more important they become. And then also living in Cape Town, it's difficult to be unhappy when you live in such a beautiful city. And you step outside, you've got the mountain, the sea, amazing energy. So those two things.
Thank you for coming on Under 40 CEOs,
My
Aisha.
pleasure, my pleasure. Thank you again for having me.
Right.
Hi, I'm Aisha Pandor, and you too can be an Under 40 CEO.